Imagine yourself looking up at the night sky. The stars seem countless, and SpaceX rockets cutting through space are just tiny sparks in the face of immensity. But long before modern engineering, there was an ancient account that already spoke of the origin of everything, the book of Genesis. In Genesis, creation does not begin with technology or advanced laboratories, but with a voice. Let there be light, and there was light. This is the first act of the biblical narrative, God's power to bring order out of chaos. SpaceX, founded by Elon Musk, has a bold goal: to colonize Mars, to expand life beyond Earth. It is a futuristic, almost mythical vision that touches something deep in the human heart, the desire to create, explore, and conquer new horizons. But while SpaceX looks to the future, Genesis invites us to look at the beginning of all things. Not just the beginning of the cosmos, but the beginning of the relationship between creator and creature. You can imagine the scene. In the beginning, the earth was formless and empty, covered in darkness. The Spirit of God hovered over the waters. Suddenly, light, order, and purpose emerge. Each word of God shapes a world full of life, color, and balance. Compare that to the launch of a rocket. Countdown. Absolute silence. Then an explosion of fire and energy breaks through the atmosphere. The rocket rises, defying gravity. It's impressive, but it's still human. What Genesis describes is different. A creation that does not depend on fuel or technology, but on the simple word of God. When we look at SpaceX, we see the pinnacle of human ingenuity. But in Genesis, we see divine power in its purest form. And here the question arises, how far can human creation compare to divine creation? The biblical text shows a creator who organizes the cosmos with intention and purpose. Light separated from darkness, the sea from the continents, the sun, and moon to mark time, plants to feed, animals to fill the earth. Nothing is by chance. In SpaceX's vision, there is also purpose: to make humanity a multiplanetary species, to ensure survival in the face of disasters. But here there is a fundamental difference. In Genesis, creation is not born out of fear of destruction, but out of God's goodness. It is as if human beings were trying to imitate, on a smaller scale, what God has already done on an infinite scale. The rocket that ascends to the heavens is a modern metaphor for the human quest for transcendence, for achieving something beyond oneself. The author of Genesis describes that, when creating human beings, God said, "Let us make man in our image and likeness." This phrase is the connecting point between what we see today in companies like SpaceX and the ancient account. We are creative because we were made by a creator. Think about it. Every invention, every advance, every rocket that breaks through, gravity is, at its core, a spark of that divine image within us. We create because He created us. But Genesis also sets limits. Humans were called to rule over and care for creation, not to replace or control it completely. This creates a tension. To what extent is the human desire to explore, colonize, and modify a healthy reflection of the image of God? And to what extent does it become arrogance? When Elon Musk talks about terraforming Mars, he uses almost divine language, recreating an atmosphere, generating oxygen, bringing life to a dead planet. But the book of Genesis reminds us that life is a gift, not a product. This difference is essential. SpaceX can take men and women to Mars, but it cannot create life out of nothing. It can transport, adapt, but it cannot say, "Let there be life," and see the impossible become reality. And here comes the emotional impact. If you have ever watched a launch, you know the mixture of awe and fear. The rocket rises, shaking the earth, causing the sky to open up in fire and smoke. It is majestic. But in Genesis, the spectacle is even greater, the entire creation responding to the command of an invisible voice. The question that arises is, what are we really looking for? To explore new planets or to understand the purpose of the planet we already live on? To expand physical boundaries or to rediscover the spiritual meaning that Genesis already reveals to us? When comparing Genesis with SpaceX, We realize that technology can take man to the stars, but only the Word of God can. Show us why the stars exist. Genesis invites us to see the universe not only as a destination, but as a witness to God's glory. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims His handiwork. And perhaps that is the central lesson. SpaceX shows us how far humans can go. But Genesis reminds us who gave us the ability to dream so big. Now imagine yourself inside a SpaceX rocket. The sound is deafening. Your body is pressed against the seat. Every cell feels the force of acceleration. You are leaving Earth. In minutes, the blue planet becomes a distant sphere, and before you lies the dark void of the cosmos. This experience awakens wonder, but also fragility, because when you see Earth from above, you realize we are small. We depend on air, water, gravity. Without these elements precisely adjusted, there is no life. And that is exactly what Genesis reveals. Everything was created with perfect balance. The sun in just the right measure, the moon adjusting the tides, the atmosphere protecting us from radiation. Every detail is calculated. Long before modern physics, the biblical text already announced that the universe is not the result of chance, but of the intention of a creator. Human beings, however, are not content to merely contemplate. They want to participate, build, expand. And that is not wrong. It is part of the divine image in us. But here the tension arises. When does our quest for creation become an attempt to rival the Creator? Remember the Tower of Babel. Men wanted to build a tower that would reach the sky, to make a name for themselves. But God scattered their plans. Not because He feared technology, but because He saw pride in their hearts. SpaceX, in its vision, is not a Tower of Babel. But the story of Genesis serves as a warning. Human advancement must be accompanied by humility. Without it, our creativity becomes arrogance. And when we look at divine creation, we realize that the difference is not only one of scale, but of essence. Man can organize existing resources, but only God creates from nothing. Human beings can imitate, they can transform, but they will never be the source of life. This leads us to a personal question. When you look at the sky, what do you feel? Pride in what humanity has achieved, or reverence for the one who created everything? The beauty of Genesis is that it presents not only a powerful God, but also a relational God. He creates, yes, but He also walks in the garden, talks with man, and woman gives purpose and mission. SpaceX can take us to Mars, but it cannot give us meaning to live. Because the purpose is not in how many planets we explore, but in who created us. Imagine colonized Mars, cities under domes, rockets coming and going. An impressive future. But without purpose, it would be just another inhabited desert. What really transforms is not the external environment, but the presence of the Creator within us. Genesis reminds us that we were created for more than exploring the universe. We were created to reflect God's glory. And that changes everything. When you create something, whether it's an idea, a song, a project, or even a rocket, you are reflecting a spark of the Creator. But when you recognize where that spark comes from, your creation takes on new meaning. SpaceX can be seen as a modern parable. It shows human potential, but it also points to our limitations. We can reach the stars, but we need something greater than stars to live. We need God. The psalmist writes, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them?" That question echoes to this day. And the answer in Genesis is clear. We are made in the image and likeness of God, small in the face of the cosmos, but infinitely valuable in the eyes of the Creator. This means that your life has purpose. It doesn't matter if you never get to ride in a rocket. The Creator has already written a calling for you. He made you to care for, nurture, and reflect His goodness. SpaceX points to what man can achieve. Genesis points to what man is, the beloved, child of the Creator. And here's the big conclusion. Technology can expand horizons, but only faith reveals true meaning. Rockets can take us far away, but only God can bring us home. So the next time you look up at the starry sky, remember, these are not just destinations to be reached. They are reminders of the voice that said, "Let there be light." A voice that still speaks today, not only in the universe, but within your heart.